Good day and welcome, America and beyond. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports. Patriotism in action, putting America first, New World Order dead last. Okay, let's get right to it. I still want to delve deeper into the conclusion of the 2012 presidential race, sweepstakes, election selection, and kind of do a wrap-up on this. And the more that I listen to all the chatter, I realize that the GOP is in complete and total disarray. They're in a complete shambles. They're shell-shocked, and they took a shellacking. There is no doubt about that. And now, what are you hearing? It's almost like moderate Mitt has come to Washington. You hear John Boehner, Weeper of the House, well, the president's weeping as well, for all his community organizing efforts and all his followers or disciples or however you want to put it. But the bottom line here is that the GOP never saw this coming. And they were in complete denial the night of. And even when the pollsters for Fox News, of all things. Yeah, Fox News is telling them, you lost Ohio. And they got Karl Rove saying, no, you didn't. And you guys have called it prematurely. At least Dick Morris apologized and said he got it completely wrong. The toe sucker, and when I say toe sucker, it's not because he looks like a pig that would suck toes. It's because he actually did that. Yeah, if you want to go back to controversies during the Clinton administration, he was having an affair with a woman's toes. That's there you go. I mean, you can look it up for yourself. But this pig, who his only loyalties are to the next paycheck and the next book signing or book deal. That's the reality here. Because Bill Clinton finally said, well, I'm separating myself from this guy. He decided to go to the Republicans. But then again, throughout the years, he worked with Republicans and Democrats, mostly Democrats, on campaigns and polling and strategizing and kind of like the alter ego. But the problem is when you have an alter ego like this is not just the short man syndrome or Teletubby syndrome, but this guy, he's got the issues wrong. The data doesn't. I mean, you can look at a lot of predictions and forecasting that he's done at Fox News and the things he says, and he comes on with O'Reilly, and he comes on with this one or that one or Sean Hannity. And you realize that as long as you're waving the GOP flag and you can and you say that you're a loyal Republican, well then then you're accepted into the fold and you're part of the family. And that's the way it works. But I want to just read to you some of the tweets that I sent out, and most of them had to do with streaming via TalkStream Live, so I could let people know that they could click to listen and give them some idea of what the subject matter was. And here's just some of them. And this was the last one I sent, and I actually think this was maybe one of my better ones. Because you only have so many words that you can actually, 140 characters, including the listen link that you can send out on Twitter. So I have hashtag super-sac Rove implodes. Now, you know when you use that term, you're a sack of, and it begins with another S. So I just said, like super PAC, super-sac, you get it? Okay. Super-sac Rove implodes. Then I had Rove, sick, and sinister. Fire, Rove, and Morris, meaning Karl Rove, Bush's brain, the architect, and Dick Morris, the toe sucker. Then you have, and you could also call him Brutus, and you can call him the betrayer, because he really is, or Benedict Arnold. Again, I have no lost love for Clinton. I despise the Republicans and the Democrats, see them as one party with two names or a serpent body with two heads that need to be severed. GOP in shambles. GOP polls wacko. Romney trounced. One party, two parts. NWO rehires or extends the contract of Obama. Obama owes Clinton, meaning Bill Clinton. Mitt misfired. GOP polls wacko. Okay, I already said that. Romney rejected. Mitt mismanaged. Romney trounced. So that's just some of the tweets I sent out pertaining to this particular subject. But when you look at this race, you realize that the globalists, the New World Order, saw Romney as a liability. They couldn't figure out who he was. They liked all the big capital stuff. And they liked the fact he was Mr. Corporation and believed the corporations were people. And he liked the fact that he was an elitist and a globalist and a plutocrat. All those worked in his favor, but he just wasn't faring too well in foreign affairs. And they couldn't figure out which Mitt they were going to deal with. But they knew that Obama was just a straight-up red communist, no loyalties to the United States. And they felt that he was easily controllable. Zbigniew Brzezinski was his mentor at Columbia University. And so that just seemed to work out better for them. So I don't think there's evidence, at least I haven't seen, of Romney being a member of the Council on Foreign Relations or Trilateral Commission or the Bilderbergs. But you know that he's traveled in those circles. But I could be wrong. So essentially, Romney was originally selected, then later rejected. So the contract for the renewal of the contract for Obama, was, in fact, implemented. So Obama was rehired, contract extended. But they didn't take a lot of fixing. I know that Savage and some of the others are saying all the illegal aliens. I don't think they were that illegal aliens would put themselves at risk and jeopardy, and I don't think that was a factor at all. I mean, if it was very minor. But Romney lost by a considerable number. I mean, this is not. You may not say it was a wipeout, but he got walloped, and quite frankly, trounced, annihilated. Slaughtered, are terms that you could use because everything boiled down to the swing states. And that's what they fought for. And when Romney could only win North Carolina, barely, and Florida's going to go Obama's way, so essentially it was almost a clean sweep. And the popular vote, at last I checked, I think it was 3.5, 4 million that Obama won by. So what we were finding in some of the previous current elections is that sometimes the one candidate wins the popular vote, the other wins the electoral college. There's some concern or controversy, but nevertheless, there was no controversy. This thing was settled early on. It was just Karl Rove, Mr. Super-PAC, and Dick Morris and people like that were, trying to I guess misinform. I mean, it's almost like when you lie or you cover up and you're going to be found out, and you're just trying to buy some extra time. That's all Rove could do because it was inevitable. There was no more tricks in his bag, and these millionaires and billionaires that pumped in, these billions of dollars to support, Romney and the corporate machine, they got nothing for it. They did not succeed. This was I mean, can you imagine? I think McCain could have even won this one. To have a race where the economy is still, in a stifled or in a stagnant mode, or in a depressed mode, and things are not progressing, things are not, improving, or if they are, they're so gradual and so minuscule. So you have the jobs, the economy, all these things that Romney's supposed to be the master. He's supposed to be, the guy that can get it done. Well, the problem was, again, he was unrelatable, he was unlikable, and he lacked credibility. Credibility is believability. If you don't believe someone, if you don't really feel like you know someone, or you understand that these are positions they take, I don't see Obama wavering in his positions. He may have tweaked a few things here or there, but you got to give him credit for the fact that he's just saying, "Hey, I'm going to raise taxes. Hey, I favor all these liberal progressive programs. Hey, I'm not backing away from Obamacare. Hey, he's not backing away or backing down. He's saying, no, we got to continue chipping away at the free enterprise system and at the republic as opposed to a democracy or a soft socialist empire. That's really what we've got here. So Romney was the corporate socialist, the fascist, in my view. And then you had Obama just saying, hey, I'm a red communist. I'm open, I'm naked, and I'm right out there. So I just, this slump and the slumber and this, what do you want to call it? It's like a nation in mourning, at least on the Republican side. And let me just clarify a few things here. Now that we realize that the Republicans are caving, and they said they're already going to work out a deal on comprehensive immigration reform, going back to Kennedy, going back to Bush Jr., Sr., and Teddy Kennedy, and various others that are into this whole comprehensive immigration. Well, Bloomberg would be another one. So when you look at this, you're going to realize that we're going to see the Democrats and Republicans come together, because it's all about politics. It's all about the advancement of their party. It has very little to do with principle. So you're going to see comprehensive immigration reform. You're going to see some compromises on taxes. That's almost inevitable. You're going to see the Republican Party shun all the social, especially the ultra social conservatives. Abortion will never be raised again. It might be in a plank somewhere, but it's going to be hidden. There's never going to. They're going to make sure there's no candidates are talking about gay marriage. All these social issues will be surrendered. Well, whether you look at Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, even Ben Franklin, who was not president, of course. If you look at George Washington, they all talked about that there had to be a moral compass. And for this to be a great nation, it had to be a moral nation, and there had to be a moral code. And quite frankly, as much as I like many things about the libertarians, it's almost as though, or let's say Jesse Ventura, it's like God doesn't matter. Morality doesn't matter unless it's professional or political morality, meaning doing the right things in terms of ethics. But don't use that term morality, because then it's saying, we're going to restrict our personal liberties or our personal freedoms. Well, when it comes to the life of an unborn, that's a pretty serious matter. And when it comes to the fact that you want to redefine marriage, again, I have no issue with civil unions. Matter of fact, I'm coming closer and closer to something I had said a few months ago, that you want a state licensed and controlled marriage. By all means, go let the state marry you. My concern is that what happens when, and sadly, many of these ministers, more than 90% of them, probably closer to 99%, are part of the state corporate churches, the 501c3 churches. And with those kinds of churches, they sign into a contract, and their mere existence is predicated on the state. So they get limited liability, and they even though they're not taxable as church entities, as spiritual entities, they're afraid that they might be taxed. And the fear of that, they say, well, let's make sure we incorporate and become a not-for-profit religious organization, and that's why they do it, for those legal and tax protections. And also, if they get sued, then they're, well, again, they're not just doing it to be magnanimous. They're doing it because they want those protections that the state can provide them. Well, the state becomes a new master. It's not God. You're not depending on God and His grace and providence. So that's the way it works. But even with that said, I hate to see the ministers forced to conduct services that they would be morally and biblically opposed to. But if it stayed just where it's all a state institution in operation, I don't really have a problem with that, because I already see that we're in a moral sinkhole, and you can't tread quicksand, and we're already drowning. So that's not going to change. And so the more I look at what's happened now, that Obamacare is not going anywhere, that the country is becoming much more liberally progressive as it relates to issues of so-called personal morality, or it's my body and it's my life, and I want to be a nonconformist and I want to do my own thing. Okay, fine. So with this situation, you're going to see that we're accepting on both sides of the political aisle, if there is an opposite side. But let's just for argument's sake say so. They're now having to say that we're not going to get into these social and personal issues, and we're going to accept that government, the federal government, is going to play a larger role in all these matters that pertain to the social compact and providing, and so there's really no turning back. So I was talking to a friend of mine today, and I said, even a colleague, and I said, the best we can do if we still want to remain part of this country is to kind of find our niche. Find that part of the country. Maybe it's New Hampshire. Maybe it's somewhere where you can go where it's legally you pay the least amount of taxes and the least amount of regulation, and you have some semblance of freedom, and you try to surround yourself with people of like mind and build some sense of community. But we're not going to... I mean, the Reagan administration during those years was probably our best shot at becoming a more constitutionally conservative, more morally based type government and society. Those times are gone. And so now with the rise of so many immigrant factions, and many of them illegal, some of them legal, and so this tremendous demographic diversity, you're now going to find that. And again, I don't look at that as a negative. I'm just simply, analyzing what is the reality, and that is that, if you're conservative, even let's say the Constitution Party, or if there really is a real legitimate conservative party, not neocon type party, and not Rockefeller type GOP country club party, just like Tea Party, for instance, there's no turning back. This election proved that at best you can do is appeal to the liberties on both civil liberties and maybe more, and libertarian, that you can that you're just going to say certain government programs are going to stay in place, and we just got to try to keep a lid on them. But these programs aren't going to go away. Where are you going to find enough people that are going to support that kind of movement? And when you talk about taking back the country, it's in terms of its government, it's been lost. And there's not enough people, whether they're the Ron Paul followers, libertarians, constitutionalists, all these different people, the freedom, patriot, constitutional truth movements, there's just not enough to galvanize politically to win back our government. And so we're going to have to accept to some degree these realities. And so how can we make changes? How do we work? I don't know if coexist is the right word, but how can we be effective without being completely decimated by these plunderers and these destroyers? So we'll pick up on the other side, the next program. The website is TomDonahueReports.com, TomDonahueReports.com. Have a great night. We got to continue fighting on, but we also got to be realistic, and we got to base everything on truth and reality.